Hey, everybody. I'm still doing it. I'm still asking for your help to share your stories around accessibility and inclusive design with me to help with my fall course. That's right. I'm teaching a new course on accessibility and inclusive design at Bentley University as part of the Human Factors Information Design program, and looking for inspirational cases, thoughts, ideas, examples to share with the students. So if you have one, and I know that you do, make sure to send them to me at feedback@experiencexdesign.com. A bunch of you already have, and thank you so much for sharing them. And I'm looking forward to hearing from more of you. So share your stories, your examples, your case studies, anything you got around accessibility and inclusive design, and help to shape the education, professional development, thoughts, and lives of the future generation of experience designers. Thanks so much. Now on to the show.
1, 2, 3.
Hi, I'm Gary David. Welcome to Experience by Design, the podcast where we explore experience designs of all kinds. Hello to all you experience designers and EXDers out there in the world. I hope you're doing well, doing great work, and finding some kind of reward in whatever you do. It's an exciting time to be alive. There's a lot going on. There's a lot to talk about. And I'm not just talking about AI, but more specifically OTAs, or what's known as organized team activities in the National Football League. For those of you international listeners, the National Football League is this prominent pastime in the United States where we watch people give each other concussions. It's very exciting, and it goes on, it seems, all year now, although the season's in the fall. Non-contact football practices have just commenced. Our hometown heroes of New England Patriots are coming off a very successful season, which unfortunately ended in the Patriots getting shellacked by the Seattle Seahawks. I don't even remember what the score was. I tuned out from it after a certain point because it was just so bad. If Patriots fans thought that performance or lack of performance was the low point of this year, just wait a moment and hold on to my beer, because recent events around the head coach Mike Vrabel's personal activities, shall we say, have raised questions around how successful this season is going to be. And if you don't know what I'm talking about there, you can just Google it, and you can find out all the information you could ever want to know about Mike Vrabel and his selected friendships. All this raises questions around, is there going to be a level of distraction that is going to interfere with the focus that is needed to succeed at that level? Is the coach, Mike Vrabel, going to be able to lead his team, given that there's a lot of other stuff going on in his life right now? The only thing that was getting more press than Mike Vrabel, it seems, is artificial intelligence. AI seems impossible to escape in the press and in our lives. When I was in London at the FTT FinTech and Customer Alpha event, every session had some discussion about AI, and some sessions were just about AI. In these discussions, it's interesting to hear the ever-fluctuating claims about how essential AI is to a company's success. How essential is it? Do we need it? Is it a distraction? Is it going to save us or destroy us? The jury's still out, and there's a lot of space in between those estimates to think about what the true impact is going to be. There is a difference between a company embracing technology and becoming beholden to it. We are seeing many companies becoming beholden to AI. Some companies are becoming beholden to the point that they're deciding to turn over all their operations to AI, and then dealing with the aftermath after the expected returns have not materialized. Or they are now seeing the price of AI tokens being so significantly increased that they can no longer afford it. Other companies, by comparison, are embracing technology by finding areas where its use fits and is more appropriate. It's always important to remember that technology is a tool and not a determinant. We have to decide how to use it effectively rather than having it dictate how it's going to be used. All of this comes down to leadership, which is why we have this week on Experience by Design, Marianne Bachynski, Chief Information Officer, author, speaker, and strategic advisor. Marianne's expertise lies in aligning IT operations and business strategies to achieve organizational goals and foster sustainable growth. There is perhaps no better time to engage in a conversation around strategic use of technology than now. In our chat, Marianne suggests that AI can unlearn more quickly due to its objective nature and the ability to be retrained. But, it's an important but, it lacks empathy and can have unchecked bias unless trained by humans. Or in other words, we talk about why we still need humans in the loop. We also discuss how new technology creates opportunities for experimentation and innovation, but only if we are not relying on the technology just to replicate what we have done in the past. We need technology to help us try out new approaches rather than trying to further entrench the old approaches. Marianne stresses that especially in times of rapid technological change, success comes down to people and how culture still matters. We have to hire curious people to begin with and continue to engage them around the what and why of decisions. People need to be shown ultimately that they still matter and that we are all in this together. This includes, I should say, people at all levels of the organization. Marianne describes how her end of summer meetings with interns was her favorite meeting of the year because of the unique perspectives and creative ideas that were shared. Marianne highlights the need for leaders to shift from micromanaging to influencing and coaching, while also fostering a sense of community and shared purpose. Marianne shares her hope that her new book, Fit for Uncertainty, will help readers change their leadership approach and build coping skills for stress. And leaders are dealing with a very stressful environment because of how uncertain everything is. Ultimately, Marianne shares that leaders of all kinds need to have the humility that allows them to say, I don't know, and be open to learning from many different voices, which still importantly includes human voices and human intelligence. It's a great, timely conversation. Hope you enjoy it.
See the black and
Okay, yeah, because we're doing it. Because I mean, that this is just too good to pass up. Given that you're from New England, the Boston area, I live in Boston, and you're writing a book on leadership, and we're talking about Bill Belichick or Tom Brady. I mean, what a Super Bowl weekend! What better way to start a podcast?
That's
and
right.
what could Bill Belichick learn from your book, Fit for Uncertainty, given that, right now he's not faring very well at University of North Carolina. If you had Bill in front of you right now and said, Bill, this is what you need to do,
Right.
what would it be?
Well, first of all, I'd say go back to your old playbook,
Oh, interesting. What was that?
which I really think I used to watch. I mean, I was a huge Brady fan. Obviously, I've always been a Patriots fan, being from Boston, but I always watched how he figured out people that he could groom and
Right.
potential, and then make them into like superstars. I mean, he did that with Brady, really, in a way too. But
Right.
he just was really able to put people in the position where they could win.
Right. And I think,
I actually have a lot of analogies in my book about football.
oh, do you really? Yeah. Well, I think it's a fascinating one because when he went to University of North Carolina, it did make me think about the extent to which could a person of his age who really came up in a different era, culture of football, adapt to this new generation. It was kind of reminding me a lot about, Gen Z or Gen Alpha and what their unique needs are in a workplace versus what traditionally has been seen as what leadership means, which is, this is the course, everyone follow, versus collaborative leadership, which is let me make you feel included in the decision-making process, which is not Bill Belichick or someone like Bobby Knight. Very different kinds of approaches in terms of leadership.
Yeah, but there had to be some. I mean, I think the key too is it's not like an all or nothing, right? Either you're dictating or it's a total kumbaya, right? It's that sweet spot where you're getting the input, but then you're making the decisions. And I think
Right.
he was heavier on the decisions definitely than, but I do think that he was, or at least in his own mind, he was able to really kind of multitask and be multidimensional about people and really to see potential. Like I think because for me, the reason that I relate to football is that when you're doing a tech project, I've sort of been trained, take out all the players off the field, figure out what game you're playing today,
Right.
put the positions you need, figure out where you have a gap, but also, when you're, you know, overseeing people and trying to develop the talent, how are they doing are they in the right person, wrong role, or wrong person, wrong, wrong company? And can you, if you just switch them, or is it just that they need more training? What
Right.
is it that could, and watching them doing other roles, it sort of exposes who they are and how they operate. And sometimes you got to shuffle them around.
And it makes me also think about his trajectory in Boston, in New England Patriots. You're sitting Malcolm Butler out of the Super Bowl against the Philadelphia Eagles, which he still hasn't come forward really. And there's Malcolm Butler explained why. A person who was starting every game of the season to then take him out while you're getting sliced and diced by the passing game of the Philadelphia. That's not really effective leadership, it seems, because there was it didn't seem to be any effective communication with anybody about what was motivating that decision or how it was best for the team. He would just say, "Oh, it was just best for the team. It was a team decision." Well, that doesn't really cut it when the stakes are so high,
Right.
and that you made such a audacious shift from what was traditionally working during the season.
Yeah. I think the playoffs can be so different, but I think the other thing too is what I focus a lot on the book is about adaptive leadership, right?
Right.
And that's what you get with football. You call an audible, whatever it is. You got 2 minutes left. You have to completely. And the Patriots were, and maybe it was Brady, but I don't know how much Brady would sometimes do his own play, but I don't know. But that ability to completely switch. You only have so many minutes left. You gotta at least tie the game to get to overtime, whatever it is, and then you have to completely pivot and figure out how you're going to make it happen. That is probably the heart of the book.
Yeah.
So what we're all faced with, we're all faced with the speed and scale, the projects, the problems rather, are just the complexity of them are just exponential.
Right.
The way of working has to change, particularly with AI. AI is kind of facilitating that. And it's all about being in those moments and being able to pivot and make, quick decisions.
It reminds me of when Tom Brady came out of Michigan, that he really was not a physical specimen in any respect.
Well, I always thought he looked like a Great Dane puppy when he ran. He was like,
oh yeah. I mean, and then Drake May, there's a picture of, I think, Drake May with his shirt off, and you're like, that's the guy, that's it, huh? But what made Tom Brady so great was not necessarily his physical gifts, but his ability to process, to think, and I would say simplify. So the complexity of the defense, able to simplify, see the gap, and exploit it even on a check down play, into the flats or whatever. He had great tools in front of him in terms of receivers, but at the same time, he was able to process so well that I think that would be what put him above, is to react and adapt to a situation as it was unfolding.
Right. And I think that takes, it takes experience, obviously, but I think the ability to, again, be multidimensional and have enough data to act.
Right.
Have enough, because you're never going to know exactly what the defense is going to do or whatever, or somebody's going to drop the ball, whatever it is. But it's being able to assess the situation so quickly. And,
right.
And that has to become habit, right? I mean, it's experience of being in those situations, and just his ability to run the clock out was always amazing to me. I don't get it, because you never really know what's going to happen in a play, right? And you don't want to throw it away. But it's just that, I don't know, he had such an amazing ability to kill time too.
And just to keep his head about him and to,
Yeah.
well, anytime
he has great vision too. He has
right.
amazing vision.
Yeah,
So.
he could see everything and process everything very quickly. So even when, as he became older and his physical gifts may have declined, as all of ours do as we get older, that ability to simplify what he was seeing to find a path forward that could be successful is evidenced by winning a Super Bowl with Tampa Bay. So he wasn't just able to do it. It was incredible. And we're sitting there going, well, only if we could have a guy like that.
Yeah.
And there we did. And the ownership made the wrong decision in terms of the Brady versus Belichick. They let Tom Brady go, which made sense given that there's been nobody in their 40s to perform like that. They let the quarterback go and kept the coach, and the quarterback went on to have great success. The coach, not so much.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's also being able to think about what could go wrong, right? It's not as well as what could go right. Like if you I throw this great Hail Mary pass and we win, but what could go wrong? Like, and I think that's something too that people have to really be, thinking about at the same time.
So who are you picking for this weekend? Do you like Seattle or?
I want Patriots, but
New England.
Yeah, I mean, I used to be when I kind of followed Brady when he went to Tampa Bay because I love watching him play.
Right.
I've always been in the New York crowd and always been all those years when they were winning. They hate the Patriots here.
Right.
So, but I got to root for the Patriots. Boston's kind of, you're a Red Sox fan forever, you're a Patriots fan forever. It's just the way it is.
Yeah,
I thought
it was bad being a Detroit Lions fan until I moved to Boston. They
started being really good, yeah.
And then they did. Yeah, look, I've been around, but this goes back to leadership as well, the leadership under William Clay Ford, or the leadership under Matt Patricia, which didn't work really well, even though he was a Belichick guy, or the leadership under Matt Millen, which really didn't go very well. Wayne Fontes, when he was coach of the Detroit Lions, very charismatic guy, very likable guy, affable guy, not necessarily a successful guy. And so again, it goes back to this question of being liked, having the people skills, but needing results, or getting results, but lacking the people skills and not being able to connect with folks in your organization. And I don't think it's an either or. I think you need both.
Oh, no. Yeah. Well, you have to be respected and you have to have trust. You don't have to be 100% liked, but you have to be, at least respected and at least hopefully liked.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no reason to be a jerk, really.
Right.
It doesn't really, it doesn't, demoralizing people doesn't really get you anywhere. And again, I think that's the beauty of distributed leadership, because you move away from the top down. The leader's supposed to have all the answers is also stupidity. And it's something that years ago was like, this is like, I'm a developer by trade. I can't possibly be an expert in every facet of technology,
right.
Cyber, this or that, or infrastructure, et cetera. And so it just, why not leverage people and give them a platform to succeed? I mean, it's really about grooming them and what you can do for them, not what they can do for you.
Right. And so what led you to deciding, I need to write a book? Was it your love of football and Tom Brady that led you to think, I need to put all this down on paper?
I'll be honest, I wasn't planning to write a book. I was approached by Forbes Books when they have a business.
Right.
And they just saw my LinkedIn. And because I've been at big Fortune 500 companies like Morgan Stanley, Citibank, AIG, a ton of transformation is just what I've dealt with. And a woman in tech, whatever, they just thought there had to be stories.
Right.
And so, it was actually a fascinating process to learn everything that goes on in writing a book and all the different components. I didn't go into it with the 6 principles of adaptive leadership.
Right.
But it was much more about reflecting on how I was trained to lead, frankly, and in going through the analysis and reflecting, I realized it was all of these things, but also they all overlap like the Olympic circles. Like it's not, you have to do everything, and they intersect. They're not in isolation, and that's what really makes it the most powerful. But again, I was really lucky to be in an environment at Morgan Stanley in the 90s and 2000s where we were just innovating every day. We didn't know that. We didn't call it innovation. We didn't call it transformation. We didn't call it authentic leadership. We just, it was really how we had to operate because there was so much economic growth and the markets were changing all the time. They were trading something new. They were going to some bizarro country, and the technology, the internet came into the play.
Right.
Technology is always changing. So you sort of had two bullet trains you're chasing. And again, we were always stretched to do something we'd never done before. And I just circumstantially was put in a number of positions. I was on the sell side most of my career which is trading, capital markets, and then the buy side, which is investment management. I was moved there, and they had not. The sell side was just their number one expense other than comp was technology, right? They were, and but the buy side was a little sleepier at that time, and they were going to grow and change and et cetera. And so I pretty much had a startup embedded in a big firm.
That's exciting because, I work at a school of business, accounting and finance. I've never had a finance class before, although I've developed a better appreciation and understanding of it just by being around. And so I find the whole finance world very fascinating from a people's perspective, but also what you just said, which an innovation group within an organization. And that's tricky because, very often organizations try to innovate in their standard processes. And that can be very difficult, if not impossible, because you have to separate, I think, the innovation from the everyday work, because otherwise, what we need to finish today, as we normally do, is going to get in the way of how we can change to get ready for tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, and obviously when the markets are open, right?
Right.
There is no downtime.
Right.
And that's religious, whatever you put that word,
sacrosanct. Yeah.
Like you said, that has to go on, but you also have to have, the ability to free up the cycles to do the transformation and the innovation, because the other thing was there was buy-in from the top because they needed this stuff, right? It wasn't like let's be aspirational, or let's be cutting edge. We needed to be cutting edge in tech just because of the pressures of real time and global and all the rest of it. And so we were always current, which is really helpful,
right?
Because you're not dealing with this legacy stuff that's a ball and chain. I'm not saying words, whatever, but we were fairly current.
Right.
But then also, in order to get them to be able to do the business they wanted to do, we had to do this stuff, right? This is where they were going. So, it was really a lot of pressure to not be the obstacle to revenue growth. We were planted in just the right spot to be able to do that. We were the ticket, a lot of times, right? And so, that also created the necessity to build, high-performing teams with sustained urgency.
And how do you get the employees to kind of go along? I mean, obviously, if you're holding out that this will make us more profitable and your comp will go up, that's an easy sell. But there's a lot of uncertainty when it's not proven. And, if someone knows, well, if I do it this way, I'm getting this result right now, and I know I can do that. But if you're telling me to do it differently, you're asking me to buy into something that might not happen. You know what I mean? So was there a challenge of getting people to kind of go along with innovation and new directions that weren't proven? And if so, how do you kind of get people to embrace that kind of change?
Well, yeah, I mean, first of all, it was very much a culture of, they really valued people they're in the knowledge management business. So that's their inventory is people, right? So you have to hire curious people to start with. Okay. But it's also, and they were very strategic. having been in both environments that are more reactive and more strategic, when you have a strategy and you have a clear understanding of where you're going, then that's what you make all your decisions against, right? That allows you to have speed, but it's a mission, and that's where you have to engage the people, explain to them what and why. What are we trying to do and why, and what is the impact we're trying to have, and don't jump to the how too soon. Like, really understand why you matter and why you can make a difference. Is engage them in it, right? And then that's where the team environment has to be a community where we're in it together. It's not about superstars. And back to football, if you look at that Indiana team, that guy coaches where they are all helping each other out all the time.
Right.
It's not all about you or the superstar quarterback or whoever it is. They're constantly saying, the play's not going to get finished because he fell, so I'm going to leap in there and I'm not going to throw the ball, I'm going to run the ball, whatever it
right.
is. But there was so much of them helping it, you could see it. They go, oh my God, I got to go over there and help that guy.
Right.
It's day and night of what people don't know they matter. If they don't know what the hell is going on at the top, they don't know why they have to move this widget from A to B.
Right.
Shit.
Yeah. It reminds me of when I looked at software development teams that were distributed around the world. And this was in a financial services operation of a major organization, that the people who were in distributed sites like India, they weren't given any domain knowledge required about the solution they were creating. They were just given, just build this piece. And I would talk to them and they'd say, we have no idea what it's supposed to do. We have no idea why it's supposed to do it. We have no understanding of the larger domain. No one's trusting us to share it with us. There's a lot of internal distrust about these captive centers that, could potentially be competitors based on price. And so there was a real breakdown in terms of the community and the connection that existed between the different sites around the world because of the very point you make, which is, tell me why I'm doing this. What's this all about? Help me be part of this process, and don't just make me, a cheap alternative to help build a piece of this larger puzzle.
Exactly. Because if it's meaningless, you're going to do it wrong, likely, but it's also meaningless to you.
Right.
you don't care about it, or it's that age old thing when JFK, he talks to the janitor sweeping the floor and thanking him for helping put a man on the moon, and it's obviously an extraordinary sort of circumstance, but still, it's just that you have purpose. And you can make most people want to make an impact.
I would say so. Yeah.
And then learning, I generally say that I'm like a data junkie and an execution addict, but it becomes addictive. Winning is fun. I'm sorry, but it is. And learning all the time is amazing.
Right.
It's just interesting. Now, if you're somebody that really wants to be in a box and manage the box and master the box, probably not so much, but you're going to have a hard time in the world we're in today. I mean, we're just changing all the time. We used to build to minimize change. Stability was, and obviously all of this is important, but now we have to embrace it and have to be good and look at the opportunity in it as opposed to be overwhelmed by it.
I think that point is so important because the idea of uncertainty versus stability, we can try to create fake certainty by establishing, the academia is famous for this. We can establish and create models which try to place an orderliness on events that we're seeing. And then we have to test those models to see if they're accurate. But the thing is, today, as we're testing the model, the thing's already changed to be something completely different.
Exactly.
We don't have the time or luxury to sit there and be like, let's take our time to really explore to see if this model works, because whoops, you thought you were playing bowling, but now you're playing chess. And now the chess game is now something, is now paddleball. So the game is literally changing as you're trying to study it.
Yes. Yeah. And then that also brings up the impact of the organization, because, again, these things like, collective intelligence, collaboration, authentic, yeah, great, but they are critical because you're really going from what they'll call a deterministic approach to a probabilistic approach. You're going into an experimental. You have to be able to do pilots now. You're constantly doing pilots, right? Because with AI and things like that, things are like your point. They're changing so fast that you're constantly doing new things, and so you have to be able to test new ideas and new ways of doing things, and it's constant.
Right.
It's a very, very, very different thing than being defined and determined and laid out the plan and then you execute.
Right.
It's continually looking at your strategy, it continually reprioritizing, continually learning, and unlearning. That's probably the hardest part, is unlearning.
Yeah. It's always interesting to me. I want to get to the unlearning part, but how many books about leadership are really about employees and about employee experience?
Absolutely.
And as we're talking here, we're really talking about employee experience. I teach a class on employee experience, and all of this really resonates around what I try to talk to my students about. It's not just asking people for their input. It's actually taking their input into account and even using it, because I've seen leaders who, I want to know what you think. I'm like, no, you don't. You want to ask me what I think so you can feel like you were inclusive. But at the end of the day, you already know what you want to do, regardless of what it is I think. And I actually said to one of my higher ups one time, do you really want my opinion? Or you're just asking me my opinion so you can say you asked? I'm fine with either one, but just let me know how much time I should devote to this because I don't want to waste my time thinking up something only to have it, no, we're going to do this anyway.
Right.
And just tell me what you want me to do. Don't ask me what I want to do if you're not going to listen, basically.
Right. Right.
It's so frustrating. So inclusion is about actually including people in the process of decision-making, not just asking for input.
And actively listening. To your point,
right.
Bringing up the point that, are you really even listening to me? Or are you just giving me lip service?
Right.
And again, I think it's a back and forth. It's not with the complexity of situations today, it's not that there's not like an A or B answer, right? So you do have to decompose it and debate it and break it apart and build it back up again. And so, it's very unlikely that someone's not going to have some input, know, and again, it takes a lot more people and a lot more disciplines to solve problems.
Right.
So you have to be able to absorb different perspectives. And my God, it's much more interesting. To me, my most favorite meeting of the year would be the end of the summer with the interns, because they were so objective, number one, and just so, free and open to explain what they thought, that this is ridiculous what you're doing over here, and then the way that they operate over there is just, day and night. And they would give you so much great feedback.
I just talked about this in class, literally this week, because I supervise internships, and, it can be one of the most frustrating things that a student goes through, because it's a hard process to get an internship. There's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of anxiety. Then when you get there, it can be underwhelming, especially the first day. And then you go through it, and then no one listens to you, and then you leave. And so, a best practice of what you just described, listening to what they say, because as one of my former podcast guests said, ignorance is wisdom. That if you don't accept the status quo and question everything, then you're in a better position to offer innovative alternatives that no one else can see. Right. Exactly what you're describing with the interns, that you might not be because you're not well experienced in this field, makes your insight even more valuable.
It does. That's right. Yeah. Because you're able to just really take a fresh look at it. And that's where trust comes in, right? Well, that sounds really noble, that you want to be trusted, but this is where you have to feel that your voice matters and that you can speak up. You can say the unspeakable, you can put it on the table, and that people are interested in what you have to say. That's why, all of these things, they matter. They sound sort of, aspirational or noble, whatever it is, but they matter.
Right.
It's the only way it works. And you have to have a community. I mean, people, the other thing, to your point earlier about simplifying, right? You have to be able to break things down. Otherwise, it's just so overwhelming.
Right.
And that's where so many people are just so stressed out.
I'm stressed. Not right now, but just in general.
Yeah, I mean, life is stressful. It's just too much data.
Yeah.
All day long. And a lot of it's, is negative.
That's true too. But you made me think of something. I'm curious your thoughts, because I never thought about this before. We talk about what's the difference between AI and human beings, and what can humans do that AI can't do. And I just thought, how well can AI unlearn? Because if AI or LLMs are predicated on kind of scanning what's on the internet for looking for sources, conglomeration of materials around a particular subject, changing that can take a long time. You know what I mean? That the body of knowledge on a particular thing on the internet is there. Mm-hmm. And to replace it takes time to put new stuff on the internet to replace it. Whereas are humans, even though it's harder for us, are we more able to more quickly unlearn something and shift paradigms and perspectives? I don't know, but it makes me wonder if that's something we can do more quickly.
I think AI can do it more quickly because
AI
is trained. It's only as good as the person that writes the model and the questions that it's asked. So, and it's objective. That's the reason I think that it could be, and I don't know this. I'm not going to profess to know the answer to that, but I think because there is no real empathy or bias.
Right.
Unless the human trains the model to have the bias, then I think you could unlearn, because if you're saying 1 + 1 = 2, and then now you say actually 1 + 1 is equal to 3, and you train that model, then it can. I mean, generative AI is a little different. What's out on, if it's taking things from the web and stuff like that, but what's there is just a collection of input from people.
Right. Exactly.
And what you'll hear about AI is that it makes sense of things, but it doesn't necessarily have to be true.
Right.
But the point about making sense of things, if you again train it to make sense of it in this way, I think it would be retrained.
Right. Yeah, it's an interesting thing to think about, because there's this famous book in science called The Structure of Scientific Revolutions. And it's basically about how difficult it is to change paradigms in the process of changing paradigms. Mm-hmm. And that very often you have a situation where someone goes, you know what, maybe the sun doesn't revolve around the earth, and everyone else is heretic. We all know that the sun revolves around the earth. They're like, no, I really don't think it does. And what was heresy becomes the paradigm, common knowledge, but that has to take place over time. And what's been really interesting from an academic perspective, and we talked about this, when we first met, academia moves at a certain pace. Mm-hmm. The world is moving at a very different pace. Mm-hmm. And so academia and its paradigms, other paradigms are emerging because people can publish their points of view anywhere. And that becomes part of this, collective knowledge that AI or anything else can go to and look for. It's not that academic papers any longer hold prominence in the forming of collective knowledge. If anything, it might not, because if it's behind a paywall, it might not have access to it. So the model, it seems, has shifted in terms of where does the collective knowledge come from, who is in charge of shifting paradigms, and how do these things get worked out in real time, especially in business, to become strategy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think research is interesting because, like you said, you're take medical diagnosis or something like that, where now a doctor can look at data on 12 million patients, right? Mm-hmm. Way more than he could ever or she could ever do personally in her lifetime ever, so you have that component. But then I think from a research and academic perspective, the whole cycle's too slow now.
Right.
Like by the time you publish it or whatever it is, if you're plodding along, then it's like we're talking about changes so fast. Is it a year later? Is it even relevant? Is it outdated in some cases? I don't know. I mean, that's because AI is a moving target. It's going to evolve, right? I mean, it's a tool. It's just a tool. It's not like and it's not good at everything.
Right.
And it's supposed to augment the human, not replace the human.
Right.
It's not meant to, but at any rate, I think, I don't know how this, just like with cybersecurity, the cycles with policy and regulation are so behind.
Right.
We're not even anywhere where we need to be with social media, right? Like, it's just, I don't know how you balance that out.
Well, a few things you said there I think are important. One of which is I don't know, because to me, one of the most important things a person can say is I don't know. In your experience as a leader and in looking at leaders and talking about leadership, how important is it for a leader to tell people, look, I don't know, right? That to claim, to be comfortable with not being completely knowledgeable and to leaving that space open for others to contribute to help answer.
I have a whole chapter, a whole principle, humility and empowerment around that.
Right.
And, one of the things that humility is not a weakness. It's a strength, right? And again, it goes to this point that one person can't have all the answers. And, one of the things that I point out is, to me, the most empowering thing you can do for somebody is ask them, what do you think? What do and I was always very open about, this is what I see, this, that, and the other thing. The positives and negatives, et cetera, and sort of look at how I looked at it. I used to try to, or if we don't do this, if we don't act, what's the ramifications, as well as if we do. Sometimes people don't think about that, like, and then get their opinions, because it was always, it's a flat table.
Right.
One of the hidden benefits of COVID is being remote. It does kind of flatten the table somehow. You're not with the armor of an office and a big table and in person, and it kind of just, everybody's equal. But I used to try to do that anyway. I don't care. Like, I don't care where you are in an org chart. You can't execute or manage based on an org chart. It's stupid.
Right.
It just doesn't work. And I didn't care. Just as I didn't care how junior you were, I didn't care how senior. Everybody's, I'm not going to say it was disrespectful, but everybody's a person.
Right.
Everybody's, and in my mind, they're there to help me if they're more senior than me. And I'm going to ask them. And if I get asked a question that I don't know the answer to, I'll get back to you. I don't know. I'm not going to lie.
Right. Right.
It's got to be that open, like, good question.
I got to deal with this all the time. I mean, I tell my students, I don't know. I was, yesterday we were talking, one of my students brought up the value of the Iranian rill. I'm like, what's that? He's like, oh, it's their form of currency. And I'm curious about, its valuation. I'm like, okay, I know nothing about that. Let's dig in. What determines the value of a currency? And so it's not true. I don't know something. I know something, but I say, I've never had an econ class. I've never had a finance class. I don't know. Let's put it on the board and see what we can come up with. And, one of my former colleagues, said, one of the most empowering things you can do in a classroom is give your students a chance to know more than you do. Right. To give them the chance to be the instructor to you, to teach you, and to level that, as you said, flatten the table, level the playing field, be humble in terms of your knowledge. Even though I have the PhD, I'm the professor, I'm older. There's plenty I don't know because I can't inhabit your bodies and your experiences.
Right.
So you can educate me on this because sure, I went to college. It was a long time ago. Things have changed. You tell me what it's like right now.
Right. Well, yeah. And that's where, the people's experiences, I think sometimes they forget when they think about what they, their professional experiences, but their personal experiences always also impact and reflect on their professional It's all intertwined, and people that's to me, that's like, I've always loved New York City, because you're working with people from all over the world, and they approach their work differently too. They just do. They were just, raised in a different environment, and so much more interesting. I mean, that's the whole, even with women and minorities and diversity, it's the diversity of thought that you want. That's what you're looking for. And it's just is proven to be more valuable.
Right.
For different perspectives you have. I mean, it's that's where the gold is.
Absolutely. When I used to teach a class on DEI. I've done trainings on DEI. And when someone says, well, we should hire the most qualified, I always say, well, what's that mean? And to me, there are 4 aspects of qualifications. There's the skills related to the job. There's perspective someone's bringing with them based on their own, positionality. There's the experiences they've had in their lives, both professional, non-professional. Then there's the aptitudes or capabilities, things that they could be good at if given the chance. Mm-hmm. And so based on who's the most qualified, well, I don't know. I'm going back to Bill Belichick, arguably the greatest coach in NFL history and football history. However, is he the most qualified to coach college students of today? Or do you need a different person with a different perspective, different experiences, different aptitudes to engage with these Gen Z, Gen Alpha athletes in the era of NIL and transfer portals? And so his football knowledge, unparalleled. His ability to do these other things, very questionable. So who's the most qualified? Mm-hmm. Right? It's not just skills. It's all these other things we have to think about as well.
No, totally. It's not just skills, and people are complicated. Managing people is. And I have to believe the college team is very different from a professional team, right? Oh yeah. I mean, it's just a different, I don't know, it's different dynamic, although I guess maybe they'll get paid too, but it is different. And again, those are the skills to me, like, that's why the one question I always focus on in interviews is, are they curious? Which we talked about earlier, because I don't know, can you learn that? I'm not sure, but are you that kind of person that wants to dig in and figure it out and solve the problem, or, can you work with other people? I mean, when I was building that team at Morgan Stanley, which was from zero, basically, and we ended up through acquisitions, et cetera, it was about 750 people. So we were hiring, et cetera. But I used to always I talked to every single person we hired, even if it was for 5 minutes. And I'm like, if this is the point where you've decided the skills are great, you're an incredible DBA, whatever it is, cyber security person, but I wanted to make sure they were a fit.
Right.
The culture of the team and the many, what's I said, not doing it. No, I don't care that they're that great at whatever. Do you really want to spend 10 hours of your day with that? Think about that. What would that be like?
Right.
Jerk, right? And if they come across as, what can you do for me, not what can I do for the team or the company, and it's all that kind of behavior, I'm not doing it. And years later, people have still come back to me and say, that team that we built back then is the best team we've ever been on. And it's because we really took the time to find the best people.
Yeah, I was just, again, in my class this last week, my introduction to sociology class, I was just talking about one of the key elements you need to have to be a good sociologist is curiosity about everything in front of you, because everything's a potential topic. Mm-hmm. And this is not just from a sociological standpoint, it's from an innovation and entrepreneurship standpoint, because anybody you watch on Shark Tank is there because they noticed something. Right? They noticed a need or an event or a happening that drew their attention, made them curious, and then they created a solution that they thought was to improve it. And it starts with curiosity. If you're not curious about the world, then you're really in trouble today, because the technical skills are going to be at risk of being replaced. Mm-hmm. It's the curiosity. As you said, AI, you have to write the prompt. With a human being, ideally, you can write your own prompt to investigate something.
Right. Right. And it's it's easier to teach those kind of technical skills, and I say technical
Right.
much more broadly than technology, than it is the other skills. And yeah, I mean, and they say that the two biggest bottlenecks for AI are people and energy.
Right.
It's not technology.
Right.
It's a tool.
Well, I know that people usually deplete my energy. So it's a different kind of thing of people and energy. When I was looking at the software development folks, it was also interesting. You brought this up that, they said, we will interview people just to see on, through Zoom or through a conference call to see how they communicate, because I'd rather have someone who's a strong communicator with below average skills that we can coach up, because it's easier to coach up below average technical skills than it is to coach up below average communication skills.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
That's exactly. Yeah. So that's what I guess what I was trying to say. The training is easy.
Yeah.
Right. The coaching them on that stuff is it's it's more black and white, really.
Right.
Yeah, totally. And it's a little scary sometimes when that's why I'm saying, if you have someone who you can see the personality is not going to mesh with people. And I think that's the biggest thing for leaders to unlearn, is this whole thing that you do have to have all the answers, and that you have to, carry the 100% of the burden. And you do still have to make all the decisions. Like, the buck stops with you, and you have to be accountable, and take the hit when things go bad, but it's unlearning this bravado that comes with micromanaging, command and control, and migrating toward control as opposed to influence.
Right.
And I that's the other thing too. When you manage people, everybody, I try to help them fill whatever their gap is, and they're all different. Everybody's different. Everybody brings something different to the table, and you want to be able to bring that out and capitalize on it, and and celebrate the heck out of everything.
Right.
Every friggin' win.
Like a Super Bowl. So, like, in closing, with your book Fit for Uncertainty, a person reading this book, what would your ideal situation be in terms of the outcomes that happen as a result of them reading this book and taking it to heart?
That they would change the way they lead. And it doesn't mean that you're in this top leadership spot necessarily. Everybody's a leader, right? And there's different forms of, just like there's a lot of ways to be innovative. It doesn't mean you invent something new, but that they reflect on again how they show up, right? For their team, for their as a leader, in their personal life, and that they are able to actually, put some of this into as a habit, so that they have coping skills for stress, and that they have the ability to work their way through. And it's this balance of, I've run a few marathons, not well, but I finished them. But in training for that, the whole concept of it's a marathon, not a sprint, but with that, you both have to have your eye on the strategy, on the end game, and you have to pace yourself, but at the same time you have to be uber focused on the mile you're in, right? It's that balance, but having the skills to be able to do that and not get overwhelmed by, like what I always talk about, when you start the race, it's 1 mile done, it's 2 miles done, it's the second half, 10 left, 9 left.
Right.
And building skills to just deal with this overwhelming amount of stress that we're all dealing with, and the speed that we have to operate, and continually to be learning, and how do you approach life, really? It's leadership, and building the skills to do that.
And it seems that all those stresses are easier to deal with when we're not trying to deal with it on our own, but we're also building a community that we can deal with it together, like a workplace or a social support system or whatever it is.
Exactly. Like, be there for each other as much as you're there for yourself, like that's something that, I think we've gotten too away from in in our communities. I was speaking with an American woman who's lived in New Zealand for many years, went there in her 20s, has had children there, et cetera. And I said, what do you feel like is the biggest difference between the United States and New Zealand? And she said, I know that if my kids were in trouble or, fell on the side of the road or whatever, somebody would stop to help them.
Right. Yeah. That's nice. I mean, it's, lack of community is something that I know that many people experience and feel, whether it be where they live or where they work. And one of the key challenges is how do we, make connection and reduce isolation and build a shared purpose towards accomplishing anything, whether again, as a community, a workplace, or a nation. That really is lacking, and people are really yearning for that. So I hope people get the book and can learn how to. I'm glad Forbes contacted you. That's also a huge win for all of us, so that people can get the book and figure out, these are the steps I can do as a leader to help facilitate these things, to make it not just all about me, but all about us.
Right. That's right.
Well, thank you so much for joining me to chat about the book and the Patriots and football.
Very exciting.
I know. Well, by the time this airs, we'll know what the outcome is, and maybe we can record a second one about what went right with Mike Vrabel or what went wrong.
That's right.
You know what the problem with Vrabel is? He's not a good coach. He's not a good leader. Or that Vrabel is a goat. He's the best leader ever. I love Vrabel. I'm going to name my kid Vrabel, even if it's a girl. My dog's name's Vrabel too. Everyone's Vrabel. Well, thanks so much, Marianne. I appreciate it.
Thanks. Really fun.
I want to thank Marianne Bachynski for joining me to talk about football, information technology, leadership, and people. You can find out more about her work and her book, Fit for Uncertainty, Lead with Purpose, Adapt to Change, in the links in the show notes. As always, you can share feedback on this episode or any episode at feedback@experiencexdesign.com. And make sure you share your stories about accessibility and inclusive design. Thank you so much for those who have already shared your stories and your thoughts. And I'm looking forward to hear yours if you haven't yet. And if you want to subscribe and join the EXD community to stay in the loop about all the EXD news, make sure you head over to the EXD website at experiencexdesign.com and give me your email, which I will not share with anybody else. It's just for me, just for me, just for me. And while you're there, you can also buy me a coffee to help defray the costs of the podcast. And as you're getting ready to plan your next corporate event, professional development, training, or anything else where you think I might be useful, reach out to me at Gary@GaryConnects.com. Got some interesting events with companies coming up right now. Looking forward to connecting with you folks, and you know who you are. And I would like to connect with you as well. So shoot me a message and let's think about how we might work together. If you can't remember the email, you can always DM me through LinkedIn. That works too. And as always, make sure you be safe, be kind, be well, and be here for the next Experience by Design. Bye.